Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJ Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3, or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings, 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464838. WhatsApp us on 3259220. Or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
All right.
Honey, did you remind him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him.
Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But don't you know about Baluwo?
Baluwo? What is Baluwo?
Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate.
Tell me how Baluwo works.
It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop, or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria, or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.
Justice Chairman Suleiman Jallo, QC, JSC, Chairman of the Constitutional Review Commission, Mrs. Hawasisi Sabali, Vice Chairperson, distinguished CRC commissioners, ladies and gentlemen of the media, CRC staff members here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all other protocols duly and respectfully observed. We welcome you all to this final of a series of press conferences that the CRC has been organizing each time that we reach an important milestone. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the press will recall that we had our maiden press conference at the Lyco Atlantic Hotel in June 2018. No, 5th of July 2018. You see, since that time, we have been together in a very robust partnership aimed at, informing the Gambians on the development of the constitutional review process. Now, here we are, this first day of October, to bring a final closure to the series of conferences that we have been having to update members of the press and through them the Gambian public on the developments surrounding the constitutional building process. Now, you will all agree with me that this constitution, the draft that we're here to discuss, is a true reflection of the wishes and the aspirations of the Gambian people. But you will also recall that recently at the floor of the National Assembly, when the Constitution was being read for the second time, it was the bill as it were, was defeated in that particular, and could not proceed where at committee level, people would have had the chance to really discuss very important matters related to the bill. Now, as you know, the CRC is a project which derived its mandate from the law, that is the CRC Act 2017, and we will stay within the law. The project commenced in 2018 with the appointment of the commissioners on the 4th of June, and the commissioners started work in earnest on the following day, which is the 5th of June. But as you know, every project must come to an end. So as the CRC is about to fold, it is imperative that we touch base with you to thank you for the sterling role you played every step of the way to ensure that Gambians were kept informed of all developments. So on behalf of the Secretariat, I would like to thank the media profusely for supporting the process from inception. Now, having said that, we will follow the usual format in terms of sequencing. I will first invite the chairperson of the Constitutional Review Commission, Justice Chairman Suleiman Jallow, QC, to deliver his statement to the press. That will be followed by a questions and answer session moderated by the CRC Head of Communications, Mr. Seni M.K. Marena. Now, when that is concluded, we will invite Madam Vice Chair to deliver the closing remarks to the press. So without further ado, I have the singular honor to invite Justice Chairman Suleiman Jallow, QC, Justice of the Supreme Court of the Gambia, to deliver his statement to the press. Thank you all very much. Honorable Chair.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Before I begin, I was made to understand just about an hour ago that you were all asked to be here by 9:30, which wasn't what I understood. My instructions were for 10:30 for 11. So I do profusely apologize to you all for having kept here for so long before now. Nonetheless, I hope we can have the usual good engagement with each other. We have Commissioner Juf Cole joining us from Dakar by Zoom, and we have our other commissioners present here, and others otherwise engaged. I am glad to see so many of you here today. We started together as one solid family, the CRC and the media, and so shall we end. It may look like we've all reached the end of the journey, but that journey has just taken off on another start. So let's not despair. The draft constitution that Gambians worked so hard on, expending invaluable time, energy, and resources, is not dead. It has merely hit a snag and is placed in cold storage, at least for now. So if anyone here today feels depressed, I say to you, lighten up, get up, and dust off. Have faith and continue the quest for constitutional reform in the Gambia. That is what Gambians have yearned for, and you must complete the journey with them. Yes, the history books will record that the draft constitution was the first of its kind, assigned to and prepared by an all-Gambian team of experts. It was the first of its kind that employed full and open participatory democracy to involve citizens at home and abroad to express their wishes and aspirations. And if memory serves me well, It was the first to be ever presented to the legislature for endorsement in order to be advanced to a national referendum. But history will also record that it was the first to be stopped in its tracks before it could be advanced to a referendum. That in itself is not and should not be the end of the world for us as a country. So again, let's keep the faith. When we had our last press conference on 31st March 2020, I thought that was the last one. I commended you all for your active participation in the constitutional review process and for connecting the process to our communities. However, I have received so many requests for interviews in the last week and this week that I thought it was best to arrange one press conference to accommodate all the requests together. And I hope this one does it. Although some of you may just be saying to yourself quietly, yeah, right. I hope my statement does not turn out to be longer than you expected. If it does, I'm sure you'll understand and forgive me. After all, this will be our penultimate press conference with you members of the media and the 9th since the inception of the work of the CRC. We will miss you, or rather we will miss each other. Like everything else in life, the CRC as an institution and as your regular partner must come to an end. What will be left will be for the history books. When we started the journey of constitutional reform on 5th June 2018, a day after I and 10 other commissioners were sworn into office by His Excellency, the President of the Republic, we knew we had a daunting task, and we had 18 months within which to execute our mandate. While being fully aware that the CRC Act 2017 allowed us to request an extension of up to 6 months, we were very clear that we were not going to abuse that privilege. We started our work without a dedicated office. We spent a month in the conference room of the Ministry of Justice and 2 months in the conference room at the Atlantic Hotel in Banjul, while carrying out our detailed assignments from our individual offices and at home. When we moved into our permanent premises at the feature-led building in Kotu in September 2018, we had no furniture or a dedicated conference table and no air conditioning. All this while the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Honorable Batambedo, and his ministry were doing their utmost to ease matters for us by assigning some of their staff to assist us and pursuing all necessary measures to facilitate our work. We dipped into our private pockets to buy water, tea and snacks, and also to buy cash power, so we could have some semblance of comfort to meet and discuss our assignment. By August 2018, we had completed developing all our key policy and strategy documents that were eventually to guide our work for reviewing the 1997 Constitution and writing a new one. Those policy and strategy documents related to media and communication, research and documentation, public consultation, and monitoring and evaluation. In addition, we developed and completed a detailed action plan and a consolidated budget that were to guide our activities on specific action items with stipulated deadlines to ensure the timely completion of our assignment. The action plan covered, inter alia, all the strategies I already mentioned, as well as a desk review of the 1965 Independence Constitution Order, 1970 Republican Constitution, and 1997 Constitution with their respective amendments. A review of constitutions of select countries as well, and of relevant regional and international instruments. In July 2018, through the benevolence of the UNDP in partnership with the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, the commissioners and the secretary were invited to our one-week orientation program at The Hague at no cost to the Gambia government. We had the opportunity of meeting with a broad range of international experts and discussing relevant aspects of constitutional development. They were impressed with our level of preparedness, especially with the policy and strategy documents we were developing, all of which were in draft form and being reviewed at that time. Again, by September 2018, we had developed and completed our issues document comprising 369 questions, inviting public opinions on each of the issues therein identified, and also a leaflet on frequently asked questions regarding the CRC. Later the same month, the UNDP came to the rescue and provided the CRC with necessary furniture, desks, chairs, and a conference table, desktop computers, printers, including 2 heavy-duty computer printers, stationery, and filing cabinets. The Secretary of the CRC Secretariat, working with the Ministry of Justice, had already arranged for and installed necessary air conditioning from the $2 million budget allocation to the CRC. In October 2018, we recruited our first cohort of employees, which continued into November and December to have a full staff complement. By this time, we were already into our 7th month in operation. The CRC issues document was published and rolled out in early October 2018 in preparation for the direct face-to-face public consultations. This was followed by a pre-consultation visit by commissioners in partnership with the National Council for Civic Education countrywide to meet with and seek the support and partnership of the regional governors, mayors of Banjul, mayor of the Kanifing municipality, traditional chiefs, and regional women and youth representatives. They all became instant partners as they each saw the constitutional review process as a necessary national endeavor that all should be proud to be a part of. Their active leadership and participation paved the way for very successful internal public consultation that commenced in November 2018 and ended in January 2019. In April 2019, we commenced our external consultations with diaspora Gambians, covering select countries in Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and 6 states in the United States of America. Attendance and participation at all the public consultations were brisk, and the enthusiasm shown for the development of a new constitution, and above all, being part of the history of developing that constitution, was beyond description. Gambians traveled from state to state, and some even traveled all the way from Canada to attend and participate in the public consultations. This was nation building at its best. The external consultations concluded in July of 2019, and we immediately commenced the process of reviewing the research papers and data collected and analyzed by our teams of researchers and statisticians under the able leadership of the head of programs. We also reviewed the reports prepared and submitted by our technical committees on land, environment, and natural resources, media, public education and communication, public finance management, and constitutional law. Each of these technical committees, including the Technical Committee on Constitution Drafting and Report Writing, was made up of Gambians of excellent academic background and reputable experience in their respective fields. Their love for country is amply displayed in their reports. They kept to their terms of reference and delivered. After lengthy and sometimes very late meetings into the early hours of the morning, the CRC completed its proposed draft constitution. This was published on 15 November 2019 for public consultation and feedback. Shortly thereafter, we embarked on a second round of public consultation to inform the general public of the provisions contained in the proposed draft constitution and to seek their views as to whether those provisions were in line with their wishes and aspirations expressed during the first round of public consultations. In the very few areas where we had departed from their expressed opinions, we advanced our reasons for so doing. The overwhelming response countrywide was one of great satisfaction. In fact, many said to us, what is in the proposed draft constitution is what we said to you. Do not change anything. We also received numerous written representations. All opinions conversed with us were properly and thoroughly considered. While we did not hold face-to-face meetings with individuals and institutions following the second round of public consultations, we found it necessary to do so with the Gambia Christian Council and the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, each at their request. The debate of whether or not to incorporate the word secular in the draft constitution was raging and quite acrimonious. It was necessary to calm the tensions and get the two groups to talk to each other in that regard. We then met with the three branches of government, beginning with the National Assembly, represented by their Select Committee responsible for constitutional affairs. This was followed by a meeting on the same day with the judiciary, and at a later date, another meeting with the executive. We listened, exchanged views on their specific areas of concern, and took down notes to deliberate further on. This was all carried out within the spirit of constitutional negotiation. We considered it reasonable to accommodate some views, but did not feel so in all cases, especially as against the overall wishes and aspirations of the Gambian people. We were mindful to ensure an appropriate separation of powers between the three branches of government, as mandated under the CRC Act of 2017. In that vein, we were able to create new provisions in the draft constitution that were reassuring in nature to ensure a decent relationship between the three branches of government, especially as between the executive and the legislature. Our initial plan for a formal submission date of the draft constitution in January 2020 did not materialize, as there were many requests for an extension to our deadline. As a consequence, we agreed to extend the deadline for the receipt of formal submissions to the proposed draft constitution to the end of December 2019. For the first time since we commenced our assignment, we agreed to take leave for the month of February 2020, while the Technical Committee on Constitution Drafting and Report Writing continued to finalize the draft constitution on the basis of agreed drafting instructions and the accompanying report for the review of commissioners in March 2020. The draft constitution and the accompanying report were finalized and submitted on 30th March 2020 to His Excellency the President, pursuant to the requirement of Section 21(1) of the CRC Act of 2017. That section effectively ended the mandate of the Commission insofar as constitutional review was concerned. Thereafter, the only thing that continued to keep us in office to date was the obligation outlined in Section 22 of the CRC Act. That section essentially empowered the National Assembly to request CRC commissioners, quote, to attend before the National Assembly to clarify any matter and answer any question relating to the provisions of the Constitution, unquote. In the end, as you all would be aware, we were not requested to attend to clarify any matter or answer any question. Accordingly, in accordance with Section 22(1) of the CRC Act, the Constitutional Review Commission will stand dissolved on 22nd October 2020, which is 1 month after the date on which the bill introducing the draft constitution failed the required threshold for enactment. On that day, the CRC Secretariat and all staff and other persons employed by the Commission shall cease to function. However, the Secretary may stay in office with the approval of the Minister of Justice for the sole purpose of preparing the Commission's statement of accounts to submit to the Auditor General in accordance with Section 20 of the CRC Act. This is pursuant to Section 22(4) of the Act, actually. The Secretary may need to be assisted in this endeavor by a few staff in finance and human resources. As commissioners, we were given a specific mandate to review the 1997 Constitution and write a new one, and prepare a report in respect of the new Constitution. We discharged that mandate in a professional and non-partisan manner, bearing in mind particularly that the development of a new Constitution for any country has the sole purpose of determining and crafting in appropriate language what is in the best interest of the country in the present and in the future. Admittedly, that process is not as simple as it may appear. It is fraught with problems. In a perfect system, everybody's wish and aspiration would be taken care of. But we do not live in a perfect system and never will. The development of a national constitution, amongst many things, requires identification and placement of priorities. It requires sacrificing, in some cases, one's wishes and aspirations for the greater good, while at the same time gaining some. It requires learning lessons from the past in order to chart a bright and productive future. The ultimate goal is, to quote the Reverend Martin Luther King, to get to the promised land. And the hope is to get there together. At the CRC, we were quite pleased that both the Executive and the National Assembly charted a path for our work through the enactment of the CRC Act of 2017. That act outlines specific terms of reference for us as commissioners. The act specified that in carrying out our mandate, we must seek public opinion and embody in the draft constitution such proposals as we considered appropriate. We were fully aware that being vested with such broad discretionary power also meant exercising the power judiciously and without any abuse whatsoever. The rules of natural justice demand appropriate judicious exercise of discretion. Furthermore, the act required us to have regard to our national values and ethos as a country. In addition, we were required to safeguard and promote the existence of the Gambia as a sovereign, independent state, the Gambia's republican system of governance, including its democratic values and respect for the rule of law and fundamental human rights and freedoms, national unity, cohesion, and peace, separation of powers, the importance of ensuring periodic democratic elections based on universal adult suffrage, including the introduction of term limit for the office of president, the continued existence of the Gambia as a secular state in which all faiths are treated fairly and encouraged to foster national cohesion and unity. In carrying out these terms of reference, what we at the CRC consistently refer to as our guiding principles, we were instructed to afford the people of the Gambia, both within and outside the country, to the extent practicable, the opportunity to freely express their opinions and make suggestions on matters they feel should be considered in the Constitution. The Act then vested us with the power to, where we consider it necessary, invite persons, including professional, civic, political, and other organizations, to appear before the Commission to make such presentations as those representatives consider relevant, or make presentations on topics the Commission may specify. It also empowered us as a mechanism to facilitate and assist with our work, to establish such technical committees as we considered necessary and provide them with the appropriate terms of reference. In the performance of our functions as enshrined in the CRC Act of 2017, the Commission was declared not to be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority. Any person who had been following our activities from inception in June 2018 until 30th March 2020, when we formally presented the draft constitution to His Excellency the President, cannot but honestly accept that the Commission had followed every rule in the rule book handed to us. We consulted the Gambian public, both at home and abroad, at considerable expense, to determine their wishes and aspirations. We did our utmost to embrace in the draft constitution our country's national values and ethos. We tried to safeguard the Gambian's existence as a sovereign, independent state, including its republican system of governance, while at the same time embracing our democratic values and respect for and promotion of the rule of law and human rights. We carefully considered the subject of separation of powers and worked to create an appropriate balance between the executive, legislature, and judiciary. We aim to increase and emphasize the cohesion, unity, and peace of our country, incorporating provisions that would ensure periodic democratic elections, including term limit for serving in the office of president. We recognize the secular nature of Gambian society and created provisions that, in our considered view, would ensure the equal and fair treatment of all faiths, which would in turn foster national cohesion and unity. Recognizing the challenges associated with constitution building, we placed a lot of emphasis on public opinion. We felt quite strongly that we must not only seek public opinion as mandated by the CRC Act, we needed to give meaning to such opinion. We would depart only where there were justifiable reasons for so doing. And even then, we would go back to the people to explain to them where and why we departed and invite their further opinion. It was in that context, during the second round of public consultations in November and December of 2019, we explained the provisions of the draft constitution to our people and the reasons for them, including the reasons for departing in a few areas. They received that information, sought clarification, and expressed gratitude for the work we have undertaken. Indeed, quite many said to us, as I said earlier on, what is in the proposed draft constitution is our opinion. Do not change anything. Since, however, we were consulting and seeking further opinion, we had to listen to other views that eventually enabled us to finalize the draft constitution in the form in which it was presented to His Excellency the President. At the risk of repeating ourselves, perhaps I should summarize how we arrived at the draft constitution. The CRC employed different methods in consulting with the general public and gauging their opinions on the 369 issues raised by the CRC in its issues document, including additional issues that were independently raised by members of the public. Apart from holding open public face-to-face meetings locally and externally, the CRC also engaged the public through focus group discussions, online and household surveys and questionnaires, one-on-one meetings with various stakeholders and individuals, written responses to the issues document, and attendance of workshops organized by different pressure groups to receive opinions on specific matters of interest and encourage greater public participation. The CRC also considered written opinions, both in the print and broadcast media, including debates on social media. In sum, the public consultation process, as required under the Act, was open and transparent, participatory, and inclusive. Every single opinion that was canvassed with the CRC was properly considered with an open mind and within the bounds of constitutionalism, eschewing the personal views of individual commissioners, irrespective of what constitutional theorists and reform pessimists might otherwise have the Gambian public believe. In order to properly place opinions that were canvassed, the CRC engaged a team of statisticians under the head of programs to ensure the quantitative and qualitative tabulation of the opinions to gauge the weight of each specific issue. The results obtained from each method employed in the public consultation process were then consolidated and averaged to determine the weight attributed to individual issues. Regarding those issues on which public opinion was either not expressed or was of minimal interest during the public consultation process, the CRC turned to research to establish international best practice on those areas, factoring in the experiences of other countries with similar legal systems as ours and relevant international law instruments of which the Gambia is a party. The CRC also took into account our religious and cultural norms in full compliance with the CRC Act, which required the CRC to consider national values and ethos of the country. While these were not the easiest to resolve in some instances, the CRC engaged additional expertise as necessary and applied best judgment to arrive at fair and objective decisions to guide the drafting process. In particular, the CRC established 5 technical committees comprising citizens with expert knowledge in the key areas of land, natural resources and environment, media, public education and communication, public finance management, constitutional law, and constitution drafting and report writing. These were complemented by in-depth research by the CRC team of researchers and support from external institutions and individual experts. Bearing in mind that it could not have developed a perfect constitution, that certainly was not its aim. The CRC had endeavored to produce a draft constitution that was truly reflective of the wishes and aspirations of the general populace of the Gambia. Even if the draft constitution were to be amended today, it could not be described as a perfect document. As far as the CRC is concerned, the draft constitution, with all its perceived shortcomings, represented the sovereign will of the people of the Gambia, sought through public consultations in accordance with our terms of reference as outlined in the CRC Act. We had not only subjected the draft constitution to internal domestic review, we also subjected it to external review by teams of experts. Our external assessors had described the draft constitution as one of the most progressive and transformational constitutions in Africa, if not the world. As the CRC, we embarked on developing what we consider to be best for our country, with the views and aspirations of the people forming the foundation thereof. The failure of the draft constitution to gain the required votes to move on to the next stages, leading to a verdict by the people at a referendum, has generated a lot of debate. We at the CRC do not seek to question parliamentary wisdom regarding the fate of the draft constitution. That is a political process from which we will stay away. It is therefore not necessarily my intention here today to get into the debate of what is or what is not or what could have been. However, for the sake of the integrity of the constitutional reform process and our own individual and professional integrity, I consider it necessary to address two matters that appear to have gained some traction in the public space. It is unfortunate that a tiny minority of critics have leveled the claim that the draft constitution was plagiarized. The CRC, with its team of experienced draftspersons and international consultants and drafters, has not given any credence to such claims and essentially viewed the claims as merely stoking emotions to back up the critics' rejection of the draft constitution. Indeed, there have been those that never said anything good of the CRC from the time of its inception. For them, it was personal. The word plagiarize relates essentially to copyrighted work that is protected and is used without the rightful authority. No constitution in this world is copyrighted, and that's for a good reason. Every constitution, including the Constitution of the USA, that has been touted as a model by some critics, has drawn inspiration from some one or more constitutions or other written literature. International experts on constitutional law advise reliance on best constitutional models for the development of new constitutions. We see the best example of such encouragement in the website called constitute.com, which collects and collates the constitutions of the world for purposes of serving as a reference to constitutional builders and researchers. If you go to the website today, you'll find our draft constitution on it. It is perfectly acceptable and indeed encouraged in the legislative drafting world that drafters of laws may draw inspiration from other written laws by adopting specific provisions thereof or adapting such provisions to special circumstances. This is not controversial, well, except in the Gambia. One only has to review various Commonwealth countries to see evidence of adoptions or adaptations. The Constitution of Kenya drew much inspiration from the Constitution of South Africa and was effectively the most modern on the African continent at that time. The Constitution of Kenya adapted and in some instances made better the South African constitutional provisions that it adopted or adapted. The 2010 Constitution of Kenya has been hailed as a forward-looking constitution on the African continent, whose development had had the benefit of domestic UN and other international expertise input. The Gambia shares the same Commonwealth tradition with Kenya and other Commonwealth countries. Constitutionally, the Gambia has more in common with Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Uganda, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania, Malawi, Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and Liberia than it has with our neighbor Senegal, or other French-speaking countries. I mention these Commonwealth countries specifically because the CRC has studied the constitution of each and where appropriate has drawn inspiration from them as circumstances required having regard to the Gambia's own special circumstances. The report accompanying the draft constitution is instructive on this. The CRC has not blindly adopted or adapted constitutional provisions from elsewhere. It thoroughly reviewed and applied them in the Gambia's own national circumstances, especially having regard to the opinions expressed by members of the public during the public consultation. It is from such sources that international best practices are gleaned. Within the Commonwealth, we see a number of laws, including constitutional provisions, that are similar or the same, referred to in judicial terms as being in pari materia. There is judicial value in this, in that courts are able to consider the decisions of other foreign courts on laws that are similar or the same to assist with deciding on matters before them. The decisions of foreign courts in relation to the laws of a similar or same nature may not be binding on the local courts, but they can have a persuasive effect in deciding a case. The constitutional history of the Gambia shows that the 1970 Constitution drew a lot of inspiration from the Jamaican Constitution of 1962, which it adopted. The 11 chapters of the 1970 Constitution are essentially the same as those of the 10 chapters of the Jamaican Constitution. Similarly, Chapter 3 of the 1970 Constitution was adapted from Chapter 3 of the Jamaican Constitution. The minor differences are in the areas of protection of persons detained during a period of public emergency, which the Jamaican Constitution did not have. Similarly, the Jamaican Constitution had no provision on prohibition of slavery and forced labor, which the 1970 Constitution adapted from the European Convention on Human Rights. In a similar vein, the 1997 Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia that governs us now drew enormous inspiration from the Constitution of Ghana. That is constitution building. Trying to denigrate the toil and hard work of the CRC on this issue has been most unfortunate. In a similar fashion, let me briefly take you through statute law. If you look at the Civil Marriage Ordinance 1910 of Sierra Leone, this was adopted by the Gambia through the Civil Marriage Act of 1938 and by Kenya through its Marriage Act of 1962, which had since been revised in 2012. The majority of the provisions in this legislation are the same, with the Gambia adopting verbatim most of the provisions of the Civil Marriage Ordinance of Sierra Leone. Kenya's Evidence Act of 1963 was adopted by Nigeria in its Evidence Act of 1990, which has now been replaced by the Evidence Act of 2011. The Gambia's Evidence Act 1996 largely adopted Nigeria's Evidence Act of 1990. Sierra Leone's Illiteracy Protection Ordinance of 1898 was adopted by the Gambia in 1902 and subsequently by Ghana in its Illiteracy Protection Act of 1912 and Uganda in its Illiteracy Protection Act of 1918. The Gambia Nationality and Citizenship Act of 1965 was partly adopted by Sierra Leone in its Citizenship Act of 1973. The Criminal Code and Criminal Procedure Code were modeled on similar statutes of Kenya, which in turn drew inspiration from similar legislation in Nigeria. The latter adapted its laws on the subjects from similar laws from Queensland, Australia. In fact, a lot of the laws debated and enacted by the National Assembly invariably draw inspiration from the laws of other countries, from regional and international instruments, and from other literature. We see a lot of harmonization of laws in the European Union, Caribbean Community, and Eastern Caribbean states. Countries are moving closer to each other and learning from each other. Let's not be left behind in that journey for the sake of sensationality. On a final point on this, the CRC had the benefit of two prominent African experts, in Professor Dr. Albert Fiajo from Ghana and retired Chief Justice Willie Mutunga of Kenya. The former was the chairman of the last Ghana Constitutional Review Commission and the latter a member of Kenya's Constitutional Review Commission. Both were integrally involved during the CRC's constitutional development process and were regularly consulted as necessary. They both advise adopting and adapting, where necessary, best constitutional provisions around the world that had come to represent best international practice. That was what they did in their own countries, and nobody accused them of plagiarizing. In essence, they viewed the criticism as a non-issue, and so do we, but we thought we needed to clarify that for our own professional integrity. The second matter relates to whether or not the draft constitution permits gay marriages. I thought we had thrashed this out properly during the public consultations and laid it to rest. But there seems to be new sermons on the subject. When we published the draft constitution, the proposed draft constitution in November 2019, we replicated in that draft the current section 27 of the 1997 Constitution. That created an uproar with claims that the draft permitted gay marriage because subsection 2 of that section indicates that marriage shall be based on the free and full consent of the intended parties without specifying who those parties were. From a legal standpoint, we did not think so, as the provisions of the section should be read conjunctively and not disjunctively. But we nonetheless sought to clarify the provision better, hence the current section 54 in the draft constitution. There were no issues with that provision during the second round of public consultation. Frankly, I cannot analyze the subject better than how the Foroya newspaper did in their editorial of 28 September 2020. The truth and fact is that section 54 of the draft constitution cannot by any stretch of legal interpretation be interpreted as permitting gay marriage. The irony, though, is that with the draft constitution now halted on its tracks, we are stuck with section 27 of the 1997 Constitution. I don't think I need to say anything further than that. The draft constitution has a lot of transformative provisions specific to the Gambia's circumstances, and I'll just cite a few examples. It ensures a fair balance in the respect and treatment of all faiths, as provided in chapters 1, 3, 8, and 9. It introduces national holidays. It provides for national values and governance to be adhered to. It removes the age-old distinction between citizens by birth and descent, and recognizes every child born of a Gambian parent as a citizen by birth. It creates a whole chapter on leadership and integrity, one of the key demands of our people during the public consultation phases of the constitutional review process. It expands on the fundamental rights and freedoms by creating provision on social and economic rights. It ensures gender balance and fair representation of persons belonging to marginalized groups, namely the youth, women, and persons with disability. It provides a specific quota representation for women and persons with disability, and makes it mandatory for no less than 10% of candidates for National Assembly elections fielded by each political party to comprise youths. It establishes a system of continuous voter registration to ensure that no citizen is disenfranchised. Right now, the way the system works, if you are here during the period of registration, you get registered. Otherwise, you don't get registered at all. In line with the mandate under the CRC Act, it provides a term limit for occupying the office of president. It provides procedures for the recall of elected members of the National Assembly as part of the Gambia's developing democratic process. It creates a National Assembly Service Commission to truly reflect the principle of separation of powers. It identifies clear principles of justice and properly delineates the independence of the judiciary. It creates expansive provisions on local government with better defined rules for local government vis-a-vis central government. It creates an expanded chapter on land to include natural resources and the environment, and recognizes the land tenure system in the Gambia and how this may be appropriately protected for future generations. It creates a whole new chapter on independent institutions and offices to strengthen the governance machinery of the public service. It provides that in relation to independent institutions and state-owned enterprises, the chairperson and vice chairperson, where applicable, cannot be of the same gender, and there will have to be a succession of genders in those offices, thus preventing gender capture in leadership positions in those institutions. It sets out principles governing finance and financial management, and it places emphasis on and creates principles governing youth development in the country. I would think that the draft constitution has good provision, for that was what we set out to achieve. Naturally, it has provisions that some would find disagreeable. That's in the nature of constitutional development. Ultimately, it is my hope, and I can only hope, that the draft constitution does not remain in cold storage for too long before it is revived, at least in some form, so that the wishes and aspirations Gambians had expressed to us can be met somehow. It is true that the ongoing debate about the failure of the draft constitution to advance to the remaining stages of the National Assembly and eventually to a referendum for the people's verdict is quite intense. I implore patience and tolerance in that discourse. We at the CRC are not despondent, as we are satisfied that we have discharged the duty entrusted upon us and carefully followed the terms of reference set out for us in Section 6 of the CRC. As a nation, we should collectively remain optimistic and work towards what is best for this country. When in trying we fall, we should get up, dust off, and proceed on the positive journey of national development. We must work together in unison and avoid spewing venom, the result of which can only result in negative consequences. At this point, I take the opportunity once again to thank the government for the support they had given the CRC during the course of discharging our assignment. In particular, I thank His Excellency Adam Barrow, President of the Republic, for affording my colleague, commissioners, and I the opportunity to serve our country. We all have wished for a different outcome, but we must continue to soldier on nevertheless. For someday we shall reach that promised destination where we all shine. I thank our external partners, beginning with the UNDP, who, apart from the assistance I mentioned earlier, also provided funding in excess of $10 million to undertake our internal public consultations, $40,000 US to our external consultants, and $3.8 million to support our technical committees. They also provided us with one vehicle, a Toyota Prado, and paid the first year's rent of the CRC's premises. Their assistance has been invaluable to our work. We also thank the European Union for their support and outreach to the CRC and for placing the Gambia's transitional justice in relation to constitutional review high on their agenda. I thank the government of Qatar for the financial support they gave to the government, of which the CRC became a beneficiary. I thank ECOWAS for the financial support they provided, which enabled us to launch and continue with our periodic CRC newsletter. Having been called to national duty and to give our best as experts and professionals in our respective fields, we have unfortunately become the subject of much disrespect, ridicule, and insult, much to the consternation of our families and friends. We must, however, move on, and I can assure everyone that we demit office with our heads high, holding no grudges, and harboring no anger against any person or institution. We feel satisfied with the product of our assignment. We continue to be very proud of our people, their resilience and love for country, but above all for educating us as we journeyed with them through the public consultation process. We are confident that all the good intentions that we all have, individually and collectively, to reform our governance system and improve the lives of our people will someday converge to make us a better people, as one family, one tribe, one Gambia. I wish to encourage our citizens not to consider the money spent on the CRC project as wasted. I see a lot of debate on this. Far from it. It is amazing how fast our people have learned so much about the Constitution and what it means and what it stands. The CRC process, apart from discharging a duty, has equally been a very educative process. Many in our rural communities have called on us to visit them annually to discuss constitutional law matters. We pass that call to where it properly belongs, the National Council for Civic Education, one of our many partners in constitutional development. I I feel compelled to let you know that since 22nd September 2020, when the bill introducing the draft constitution failed to garner the required votes in the National Assembly, I have received a number of condolences. Messages from friends and professionals with whom we had worked on this project and citizens alike. At first, I felt confused, wondering who actually died. When might the funeral be held and where? Or has the funeral taken place already? Then it dawned on me quickly that it was the draft constitution, which we all thought had life that they were referring to. I wondered how I should respond. Tell them Sigil Sawala or something else. In the end, I said to myself, we are all bereaved. And therefore, not to make matters worse, I simply sent a thank you note to reassure them that constitutional reform is always alive. And so shall it be long after we depart this world. In conclusion, I wish to mention that during the period of our service as commissioners, we have tried our utmost through our oversight committee made up of select commissioners to lend maximum support to the secretary and our secretariat to ensure frugality and proper management of the financial resources entrusted to us and to carry out our assignment. By the time we cease to hold office on 22nd October 2020, we would be in a position to return to the government at least $10 million of the subvention we had been receiving. I thank the secretary, head of HR and admin, and head of finance, and the respective staff under them for their diligence and stewardship. Let us try and always support each other as a people. If and when we have differences, let us agree to disagree, while at the same time maintaining harmonious relationships. We are too small a country not to love each other and be honest with each other. For our part, the CRC commissioners and our secretary and staff, we love each and every one of you. I now thank you and pray that the Almighty God shines over our country all the time. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Justice Chorno Suleiman Jallo. I think the Honorable Chair deserves a standing ovation. Thank you for that brilliant, powerful, bold, and courageous statement. The last part of the statements are very touching and very emotional. Thank you for job well done. My task here is simple. I'm going to moderate the question and answer session, but before that, I would love you guys to ask your questions in any language, because I understand you have local audiences that are also following this proceeding keenly, and these are one of our stakeholders during the entire process. Our colleague journalists who have been following the process since day one can bear with me that the ownership that the Gambians, irrespective of who you are in this process. So without much ado, I will now take questions from journalists. Please, your name and the institution you are representing. Thank you.
My name is Zainab Joe from Block TV Gambia. Here is my question. Aside from projects, don't you think the CRC focused so much on avoiding a repeat of Jammeh's era abuses of office that an imbalance of power was created to avoid executive excessive? Is this not over there?
Well, thank you, Zainab, for that question. When you look at the draft constitution, at least in our professional considered view, there is really no imbalance. We've looked at international best practices. where we create, a balance, a decent balance between the three branches of government. Yes, we've had that argument, but I certainly, personally, where I sit as chair, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of commissioners as well, because we've debated this subject quite thoroughly. We believe we created the right balance. And if you look at other constitutions around the Commonwealth, you'll see the same balance that is established. So if somebody were to tell me that this is what you've done and it doesn't create that balance, we can have that debate. But as far as I'm concerned, we've thoroughly looked at all the relevant areas that will create a decent and harmonious relationship between the different institutions of government.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Hold on, not to confuse it. Can we have you first and then next I said your name, please, and the institution you represent?
Okay. My name is Fatou, and I am from Taranga FM. I have two questions. Are there any potential processes that can be followed to activate the draft constitution and give a second chance? And also, CRC's job also entailed a review of the 1997 Constitution. Why is this document unhealthy for our current transitional justice process? And also, if you don't mind, I would like to have it in order for my local audience. Thank you very much.
The question, let me start with your other question, your second question first. Why is the 1997 Constitution unhealthy? I wouldn't use that language. If you look at the 1997 Constitution, there are good provisions, and we have even adopted some of those provisions. I think if you look over time, if you have taken a careful review of the 1997 Constitution, that's where the imbalance Zainab referred to earlier actually occurs, where you have one arm of government exercising enormous powers as against the other branches of government. So this is a matter of opinion for everybody, but I think if you look at the draft constitution, particularly the transformational provisions that I outlined in my statement, you realize that they are miles apart in terms of what the people of this country desired and what they asked for and what they aspired for. In terms of your first question, what process is there to reactivate the draft constitution? I wouldn't really want to deliberate on that because our mandate stopped where it stopped. This is not a matter for the executive and the legislature. It is for them to design and determine, should they so desire, what the next step should be and how they would go about that process. You wanted me to respond on this in Wolof? All right. Well, you see, you didn't ask me in Wolof. But I will try. Li nga doon laajte Sukay mooy lu nekk ci 1997 constitution nga xam ne loolu moo baaxut li waral ñu draft ñu constitution bi. Soo seetee 1997 constitution bi balance bi fa war a nekk diggante executive mooy presidency bi, legislature bi mooy néegi député yi ak judiciary bi mooy néegi àttekaay bi, di nga gis ne balance boobu nekku fa. Kon liñ def mooy ñu gis naka la ñu mën a créer balance boobu. Soo seetee constitution biñ yore léegi mooy 1997 constitution di nga gisal sa boppa soo ko tegee side by side ak draft constitution bi di nga gis ne duñ benn ñu utee comme guddee bëccëg waaye nañ tamit xam ne 1997 constitution am na fa am na lu mu fa tëral yi nga xam ne baax na te yooyu daaxuñ leen génnewuñ leen jël nañ leen dugal leen ci draft constitution bi soo lii moom liggéey ñëpp la ñu jël seet ko seegaat ko gis naka la 1997 constitution mel bi mel ak naka la draft constitution bi mel ak lan la ci yokka li nga xam ne baax na pour réew mi dem ci kanam. Beneen question bi nga laajte woon mooy comme que draft constitution bi fu mu nekk nii demul niñ ko yaakaaree woon lan yan yoon lañ mun a jël pour gis ne delloowaat nañ ko pour gis ne draft constitution boobu nekk na constitution bu taxaw pour réew mi loolu moom du suma liggéey du liggéey CRC ñun dafa am lu ñu sant mooy ñu waxtaana waa réew mi déglu leen jël seen xalaat bind ko ci draft constitution ba pare su loolu pare ñu jël ko jox ko njiiti réew mi def nañ loolu te suñ liggéey bi falaay nguur gi ak néegi député yi léegi ci ñoom la des pour ñu waxtaan ñu decide lan la ñoo mën a def pour gis ne draft constitution bi wala constitution bu bees taxawal nañ ko ci réew
Hold on. Sorry, hold on. I'm in charge. The lady has the mic. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I am Fatou from Gambian Talents TV. Justice, do you feel betrayed by the government after setting up the CRC, spending over 116 million time, effort, only to allow the bill to go down the drain? That is my first question. May I do the second one? Yeah. If you were to be called by the NAMS at the third reading, what strategies would you have used to convince them? A follow-up to that, do you think your intervention will have created any impact or yield any dividends, considering the fact that parties on both sides of the aisle made up their minds on this draft? Thank you.
On your first question, Aissatou, do I feel betrayed? No. As far as we are concerned, as commissioners, we were given a mandate, and we believe consensuously and professionally that we've discharged that mandate. The issue of betrayal really is not for us. That's a matter for public discourse, and that is something I wouldn't want to venture into. In terms of your second question, what strategies we would have adopted had we been called before the National Assembly, it did not require any particular strategy. All it required was for us to be there and listen to the questions and the clarifications that would have been sought, and for us to answer honestly, armed with the knowledge we had during the constitutional review process and in terms of what the people of this country asked for. That's all we would have done. And if you look at our report that accompanies the draft constitution, and sometimes I get the feeling that people have not read the report, because I hear a lot of questions, I hear a lot of sermons, I hear a lot of preaching about things. Sometimes I shake my head and say, oh my God, go read the report. And that's why we are seeing a lot of misinformation. And I think our people deserve better. Sometimes we tend to inadvertently, take advantage of the illiteracy level in this country. And we shouldn't be doing that. We went to great pains, at great cost, to effectively translate the draft constitution into our local languages, because we wanted people to know. And they had asked the same question of us. And we promised them that you will know what is in the draft constitution. And we produced this and distributed them countrywide. If you can speak English or can't read the draft constitution or the report, all you have to do is get one of those local language translations, and they are available countrywide. Yeah?
Next, Alabi, yeah.
My name is Alabi Mane. I work in this administration. This is you said if you share the feeling like other commentators, the social commentators, that do you share the feeling like lots of other commentators and the public sources out there that the digging of the draft constitution by the National Assembly was somehow hatched from the State House, or somehow some sort of grand conspiracy? What is your reaction to some of these comments of the public sources? And my second question is, in your review of the talks regarding plagiarism and being said, quote unquote, that the talks were coming from a tiny minority of critics, and in the report it said that this was possible. Can you be specific? Can you elaborate?
Thank you very much, Alaji. On your first question, my answer is, frankly speaking, I can't answer that question. It is not, you said whether I believe that there was some kind of grand scheme from State House?
Yes, because I've been told by different sources, even during your visit to the State House to present your draft, you weren't welcome. The president was as cold as ice, as some people. So do you share the feeling that the defeat of the Constitution is somehow a grand scheme, that it was somehow pushed at the State House against the
You know, first of all, let me say this. Conversations we've had with institutions and individuals, we promise that will remain confidential. So I will never reveal what exactly transpired in our discussions with anybody. The other thing is, in terms of whether this was a grand scheme, it's not for me to speculate on, and I have no evidence to say that. You said yes, we had an, I don't know, you didn't use the word acrimonious, but it looked like we had an acrimonious discussion. Well, you rely on intelligence, so that's entirely up to you. I think we had a very good discussion with all the three branches of government. Naturally, in any discussion like that, there will be disagreements, you know, and those disagreements, as far as I know, were discussed and settled. You know, we all left agreeing or agreeing to disagree. And that's the nature of constitutional development. So I wouldn't escalate that to anything beyond that. And I think that was the only question you had. Yeah, let me say this. I now remember your question. Let me say this. I'm not going to get into personal stuff, frankly speaking. I think that is something I shouldn't properly get into. That's not for me. But at the same time, I cannot, as a professional, I've been drafting legislation for over 30 years, all right? I cannot sit and see people make misleading remarks that go to my professional integrity and to the professional integrity of my commissioners. It's wrong. So that's why I spent time to clarify that position. I'm a trained draftsman. I have 3 other people who are trained up to master's level. We know how to draft legislation. We know how legislation is drafted. So when people make remarks like that, not knowing what drafting entails, how the process is carried out, it's nothing but stoking emotion unnecessarily. That was why I felt I needed to make that remark, to put it beyond doubt that we did our work in a very professional manner, and it is nowhere different from what other countries have done. And this is not the first time I personally have been involved in a constitutional review, and I know how it is done. And that's exactly what we did with the draft constitution.
Hold on, we will go to the next question.
Thank you. Alagi.
Sorry, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, the second round.
Alagi, we will come back to you. Abubakar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairman. I thank you, and I thank all the other commissioners for the brilliant work that you've done before the business. My name is Abubakar Sedikan, and I am the senior editor in one of the upcoming newspapers that is coming up, today newspaper, and also I'm a broadcaster at JKFM. I have attended 2 press conferences recently. One done by Mr. of VDP and my colleague of TMC. They all accuse and they are not satisfied with the performance of the current Minister of Justice, that he has failed to properly persuade and advocate for the establishment of this draft constitution of the National Assembly. My question to you from that area, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Chairman, is, don't you think that the resignation of Campbell must have triggered the failure of the draft constitution? That's my first question. I had a program with another very important person at the radio. I wouldn't want to call the name, but she was also dissatisfied with the issues that has to deal with women in the draft constitution. Can you just leave it there? Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Abubakar. In terms of the AG's performance in the House, I won't comment on that. But I think, as I said earlier, you know, and I'm one person who likes to be fair. And a lot of questions, as I said before, were asked of the Attorney General. You know, if it was desired to have a comprehensive response on all of those, we should have been invited. That's the reason you have that provision in the CRC Act. We were better placed than anybody to make that appearance and clarify and answer questions. We have to be honest about it. The AG, the Honorable Attorney General, found himself in an untenable situation. All that had to be done was to move it to the next stage, where we could have been invited, you know, to answer those questions and assist the House and the Honorable Attorney General in responding to those questions. And I'm not holding brief for the Honorable Attorney General. I'm sure he's perfectly capable of doing that for himself. The other question is some provisions regarding women. Somebody wasn't satisfied with it. Look here, let's be frank here. If I take 10 of you here today and tell you, look at the draft constitution, I'm sure you'll come up with a ton of recommendations that you don't like. That's the nature of constitution building, which is precisely why a constitution is not made to be inflexible. You try with what consensus demands for today's generation looking into the future, with the possibilities of amendments in the future. That's how constitutions operate. That's how they function. So yes, I can understand somebody not being happy with it, but I would have thought that any woman would have been happy with the provisions we made in the draft constitution to ensure gender parity. We put in, for the first time in the history of this country, a quota specific to women to make sure that they're adequately represented in the House, but also made provision that no political party can stop a woman from contesting elections simply because that quota exists. So we created a situation where, in reality, women could actually potentially end up being more than men in the National Assembly. So why would anybody dislike that? I mean, there are other provisions I could understand that people may not be happy with, but that's in the nature of constitutional building. Like I said in my statement, we have to give up some to get some. At the end of the day, it is the greater good we are looking at, and that is what we must all pursue.
Next question, Julde. Your name and the media house you represent.
Julde, get the mic first, please. Thank you.
Couple of questions, but the first one is a clarification. You said many people think that it looks like the draft constitution is dead, but you said it is not dead. I just want to know how, what you really mean by that. And the other one is, you said the CRC Act gave you the mandate to appear in Parliament, and of course the clarification with regard to the draft bill, but that was not accorded to you. Instead, the Justice Minister was the one who made all the clarifications that was raised by the parliamentarians. Do you think that was really a deliberate attempt by the executive to reject this draft constitution? And another one is, if you are given a chance to revise this draft bill, what would you change in the draft bill? Or if the executive really gave you the chance to revise the draft bill, will you still give it a second thought or opportunity to really go ahead with a second chance? Finally, it's what is the way forward for the constitutional review process in the New Gambia? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. That's 4 questions, I think. I'll take a shot at them. Yes, I did say that the draft constitution is not dead. That is me saying that on behalf of my commissioner, because I feel, and we feel very strongly, that enormous resources and enormous talent has gone into the draft constitution. Like the draft constitution, hate it. The fact of the matter remains, it has very good provisions. Yes, that is my reason for saying that it is not dead. I believe firmly that the government is still committed to constitutional reform. I want to believe that the National Assembly is still committed to constitutional reform. And I have absolutely no doubt that the people of this country continue to call for constitutional reform. So the process, in all reality, and for love of country, will continue, maybe in a different fashion. So that was the reason I said that. And whatever constitution comes up eventually and meets our hope, it may not reflect the same provisions, but obviously it will replicate, in my view, some of the existing provisions. On your second question, whether the stance taken by the Honorable Attorney General in the National Assembly was a deliberate attempt on the part of the executive, I will not speculate. I will definitely not speculate. As a lawyer and as a judge where I am, I would want to believe that the Honorable Attorney General meant well. But then, like I said, when we were informed that this draft bill introducing the draft constitution was going to be tabled before the House, we were ready, we were on standby. And I think we would have been in a position to better advise the honorable members of the National Assembly so that they are better informed as to whether they would have gone with it or not gone. And that's not for us. That's entirely within their discretion. And that is as much as I need to say on that. If we were to revise the draft constitution today, what would we change? I can tell you honestly, for us as commissioners, this is the end of the road. And what would be revised if the draft constitution were to be revived is really not a matter for us. That's a matter for the players. And I think we need to be very frank here as well. The draft constitution, in my view, did not fail because the CRC failed to follow its mandate under the CRC Act. And I haven't heard anybody say we haven't followed our mandate properly under the CRC Act. I think ultimately, and this is factual, I'm speaking from conscience and professionalism here, it failed on the altar of political convenience, and that's natural. A constitution is a political and legal document. So you cannot get the politics out of it, So that's why my hope is that going forward, and this is one of the ways forward question, is that we will get together, recalibrate, and look for one thing. And that one thing is what is in the best interest of this country. And in considering that, we must take into account the views and the wishes and aspirations of the people of this country. I have learned, my commissioners and I have learned so much through this process. Sometimes we sit here, all educated, having been privileged, gone to school, some to university, and holding good jobs. We think that our rural people don't have intelligence. We've learned firsthand that common sense is real sense. They know a lot more than we give them credit for. The one thing with our people, and I think we all will recognize this, they do not like to talk much. If they disagree with you, they would rather be quiet or maintain the Maslow syndrome. When we were out there, sitting with them in their banter bars, discussing constitutional law reform issues, we felt educated. They raised a lot of things that were not even in our issues document. They enlightened us. A typical example, if you take a look at the issues document, you won't find anything on agriculture. And agriculture is the bedrock of this country. They raised them. And they indicated why it needs to be addressed in one form or the other. And there are many other examples I can give. But I think in terms of the way forward, we need to, we all as a country, need to come together. We need to put aside personal opinions, personal differences rather. We need to look at what is common and what is good for our people. And we, above all, must understand that constitutional development requires some sacrifice. Somebody has to sacrifice something for the rest of us to gain as a country. That's in the nature of constitutional building. You just have to take a look at how constitutions in other countries have been developed over time. For example, we've put provisions in the draft constitution about qualifications for certain offices. Maybe the current holders don't have those qualifications. We created transitional provisions. They continue to hold those offices until they demit, but whoever comes after must have those qualifications. We put in a provisions, for example. We said the National Assembly elections and presidential elections must be held on the same day. Because this is what the people say. They say they're tired of going to, voting just a couple of months after presidential elections. Now we had to decide, how are we going to do that? Because the term of the president ends, and then you have 3 more months before the term of the National Assembly ends. We said the National Assembly must sacrifice. So we cut their 3 months. But we saved it for their pension rights to make sure that the mere fact that their term ended with that of the president would not in any way mean that that term is not counted as a full term. So we took some and then provided protection. I think that's only fair. So I think there needs to be that element of sacrifice. If we don't do that, we will never have a new constitution. I can guarantee you that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Just to all my colleagues, don't overload your question because this will give us an opportunity to ask. If there is any opportunity after all other journalists ask, you can come and then ask your question. I hope that helps. Next.
Thank you very much. Listen to Mr. Kerr. There are 2 issues that you highlighted. They are very important and they are very clear. But the question here is private constitution, the draft constitution. What's almost taken away is the right provided by the previous constitution. It's also provided for to give the DPP more power, take over. Even though at the start, the DPP was not satisfied. The DPP was missing. It has full power to go. So you want to understand why this is it one way of life people like that.
Thank you very much, Yankuba. One of the things our people said to us was, we need to see more transparency in governance. And critical to that is to divorce the Office of Attorney General from that of Director of Public Prosecution. Because one is considered to be political in nature, the appointee being a political appointee. Whereas prosecution ought to be taken on a very objective and fair level. Nobody is saying that the current system doesn't work, but perception is everything. We have to recognize that. And in so doing, we created the Independent Office of Director of Public Prosecution. It's a very, very important position. You find it in almost all Commonwealth country constitutions. We allow for private prosecution. It is there right now in the 1997 Constitution, but Parliament is supposed to take steps to activate it. That has never happened. So what we provided for there, the Director of Public Prosecution in matters of prosecution represents the public interest. Where provision is made, where we have made provision for the Director of Public Prosecution to initiate, continue, or discontinue prosecution, that is standard practice. In relation to private prosecution, I think there is specific provision, and I will need to look at it, but if memory serves me, there's specific provision where you need consent from the other party or from the court. There is specific provision to that effect. But again, there still needs to be some level of activation by enacting legislation to properly regularize that. And that particular legal framework is provided for in the draft constitution. So I don't think it is a disadvantage at all. I mean, this is not uncommon in Commonwealth countries. So you look at the Constitution of Malawi, it has a similar provision. Look at the Constitution of Uganda, has a similar provision. So there are specific provisions on private prosecution, but obviously it also needs activation at some level through enactment of legislation. And if I may, before I take on the next question, Yusuf Taylor had previously asked me the total expenditure to date. I now have that information. It is $123,812,346.15. That is as of today's date. Sorry, as of yesterday's date. Like I said, the CRC secretary and a few other staff will remain to sort out the accounts. So there might be, additional expenditure around this particular subject matter. But also, don't forget what I mentioned. And my finance people were very proud to come to me to tell me, Chairman, we can actually give back at least $10 million to the government. I don't know, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I was impressed that, throughout this process, we've been very stringent, no doubt, they were able to make that kind of saving so we could give back to the public treasury. Yes, the next question.
Next question, please. I will give opportunity to those asking for the first time. The lady behind, the one in the lady.
Okay, everyone. I am Fatou. I'm working with Block TV Gambia. Okay, my question is, we have seen in America how a politically charged confirmation of presidential nominees are. Obama picked Loretta Lynch and blocking him from choosing a Supreme Court nominee right around the end of his term. If a democracy like America has partisan problems with its Senate confirming nominees, even when they are able and qualified, what makes the CRC case that a politically apathetic, divided and deeply partisan candidate can confirm presidential nominees for political positions without bias? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fatou. I'm not sure the American system is the best model to compare, but that's a matter of opinion. What we did, you remember in the proposed draft constitution, when it was released for public consultation, we had confirmation for judges, High Court judges, I believe, or I may be wrong, but at least Court of Appeal and Supreme Court judges, including the Chief Justice. And we did not come to that lightly. We made a comparative study around the Commonwealth to see what the ongoing practice is. The essence of confirmations is to assist the relevant institution to make sure first they get the right person. Secondly, to aid the executive in making sure they get the right person. And to ensure at the same time that the people concerned get to be known by the public. A lot of you, you hear judges X, Y, Z, you don't know who they are. You don't know at what level they are at. All of those are usually reasons for the confirmations. But the fact of the matter is, when we took a comparative study, we found that Sierra Leone, Uganda, Liberia, and Zambia require confirmation of all their judges at every level. All the judges must be approved by Parliament. The Constitution of Ghana requires that the Chief Justice and all Supreme Court judges must be confirmed by the National Assembly. And the reason is simple. These are very key positions. And somebody might say, this is an irony for a Supreme Court judge to be standing and saying this. But it is not only our opinion. It is exactly also what the public said to us. And we found sense in it, to make sure that we all subject ourselves to that sort of scrutiny. Obviously, what we all expect is that civility and common sense and getting to the right objective will guide the process of confirmation. If we look at today's events only and not believe that in the next 20, 50 years, things could change for the better, then we are, in my view, being very myopic. We legislate not only for now, we legislate for the future and in terms of what is good for the country. This country has gone through a history where judges were being hired and fired, left, right, center. When we get the legislature involved, obviously that has its impact. And this is recognized by those countries that have adopted the same system. In Nigeria, for example, they also have this confirmation processes for quite a number of positions, number of judicial positions. In some countries, it's only the Chief Justice that requires confirmation. In some countries, it is Chief Justice and Supreme Court judges. In some, it is all judges. When we looked at it in our context, we thought that it was best we restricted that. And we did listen to the judiciary, because we had that conversation. We did listen to other submissions on the subject matter. So we removed the earlier provisions we had, which we are too broad, and restricted confirmation to Supreme Court judges and the Chief Justice. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
There is a gentleman at the far end. You have the floor. Your name, please.
Yeah, I'm Adam Ofaya, both FM and Maybe TV. Preferably, I would like to ask in the local language for the benefit of all of listeners and their followers. Let's talk about the economy and what I could have money account. Near that, the digital media or one of them multi-member series, the bring the benefit of the bad problem. Most of them, many are what they are going to do. Diamos a lot of damage to back one of the upper limit, the upper case limit in Amanta constitutional limit. And do they political leadership of Bangkok and the many are actually go with the market and catch for well below because 1997 constitutional deprived of political. And then the second question is more financial Bangkok and the many are Jamal. It can mean for all of the Altara Kenya, alien constitutional alien. Well, deliberation of the act and the report, walking in the other languages. So, let's prefer in the local language, you often clear in the photo. Altara Kenya, alien constitutional alias. Well, Nalia, Munana Alio, because Jamal many are for you for a Yoga, a coming from contact for the woman. So, well, left your flow plan.
Abarka Bakebeto Surun. Okay. Adam Abarka Bake. Your question follow me Ninka Wolom for na draft constitution in Asafele Purka party Nangam Makoi. Dung Anyanta Tala Nyami Makonya. No diamo moile. Bobo diamo ata ya fa imbalito. Kat ko momo yen lo e balon na kon ten political party hani kilim nena man si kakacha bari birimbe ñun do ko keka na political party min be ñu banko kan ni be invite le inate ni sitam kachata ni la ñantol ni linka muruntan sitam wul kol kacha na ji constitution be safara diamo ka foko ha 1997 constitution ay mole bali wala ay mole makoy wo manken to la hajat wo manken na doko to wo manken na doko sababu na doko sababu wala ka banku dungal la nyanto ni ka jube minni loi tatanya kaje ko min be ñi banko e nafala nafa karo wo ye safe ni constitution nga osilo le no ban ni mol ko ha ñinne atina ki ñinne atina ga ndu man tarantol la ka ca ko bitun e ñante faw ñinen kala woli wolo ñaade kar ko politique kacha wo man dun na do ko ñin elak ñinen kar flan jama mi yalon ko nga jaabi non na statement ko angale kamoto wolon ko dol ko tata keni ala ngela constitution ta na okay mol mbe o foga mba fole ye keni la constitution ta ye draft constitution ta ya jube ko fo min be kene wala bije bari canada ji ye constitution dol fanan jube mi yalon ko ngi jube tol fa ngi jube ko mi yalon ko e betata je ngi tangi bulande na constitution ani loi aka safe nyami tol na lon kat na wala kara ntarta to mi tande sanji tan sa ngalon aka safe nyami nen na 1970 constitution of UBB fenjema bije ay jamaica la constitution of ta habula nen na 1997 constitution of UBB jama bije min be gana constitution of ta ay constitution safo manyi min ko e manyanna dula jubela hakil kila mo manke hakilo te ngamra mandin ko la ka do madi mandi ko la ka hakil kila manke hakilo ise tara kudo kachaka mi ale lafta safela inyante mirala bat nga jube banku do yo ko kinyade no jube bi jama bije man songi lan ko wol amanke pour na janti ini mol la nyanto manta ni loi dos jube ni banko ka mi safeta je amambo ni banko ka abota banku do wol fana yela loi bondi banku do constitution ni loi ka safa wala na manke constitution oti na ñin treaties mi yalla ko wala be safari wala maybe mo karandilame be university ay min safe mo le wota yaso constitution ka safa wala barka fo kon tata fo kenya man fota kenya fa no la constitution ta nga bulan na draft constitution ku betol bi jere ku betol be kenya la draft constitution ku betol be South Africa la constitution ku betol be Malawi la constitution ku betol be Ghana ni Nigeria la constitution muna ne mo wolfo woto ni mo sita bi e ko constitution e nyanta safere e nyanta jube la banko mi yalon ko alla luwal katata nyola woli ake nyaadi wole be kafla hakilo ndu nyin kol nyin diamo ntene metal wa safara barne na man ni façon diamo bo dulata fami ke gambe nene mamo dulata kar kon tengalon duwa ka safara ndu amanko kon dammalum duwa safela ti ni constitutional review commission mo sabado biye nyin ne karam ye nyin ne karam ndu meta kila na commissional mi yalon ko man drafting karam ku jige e man nyin kamil hakilol min nata je ngol be kisi ngajibe bari fanan kanyina ku kilinna ku jema be constitutional draft constitution bi yalla ntol fon la miro lam ani mol ye mi fon a safeta nyami tolle ngaki kat ko luwa ka safeta so ngamira nyanta wala fola jabiro to ila ni minen kar ko
Thank you very much. If there is no further question, we will just take few follow-up questions and then we will then wrap this with the vote of thanks by the vice chairperson. So I'm seeing 3 hands. Let's do it like this. First down, Alhaji Mani and Abubakar Selikan for the follow-up questions, and then we will move on. So we start with next down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, for the opportunity to subpoena for the American. Like you said, this is a political issue. We cannot ignore it. It is a political issue. You thank President Obama. However, affiliated with the president and the APRC have clearly voted out against this constitution. How can we reconcile these two? We're thanking the president, obviously, for all what he has done. But we have seen that those who back him have voted against this. So that's my question. And what next? After all this hard work, what next for you? If the president or the executive come back to you and say, we want you to revive this, turn this around, what will you do? Or are you saying what you need to do?
Thank you, Flex. In terms of what you said about thanking the president, the way you summarized it as your opinion. I think, let's put my statement in context. In my statement, I thank the president, rightfully in my view, for giving us the opportunity to serve our country. I think he deserves that commendation from us, because he gave us an opportunity. He enabled us to learn so much and share so much. So we are not going to be ungrateful. The question as to what you described, I have no evidence of that. It's not something I will get into. That's politics. And like I said at the beginning of my statement, I would want to steer the CRC away from politics. It is not part of our mandate. I need to, as chair, maintain the integrity of the CRC. We've come to the tail end, and I'm just not going to put that to waste. The second question, what happens next? If we are called to assist, to further work on this subject matter, that's a matter for the individual commissioners. But I think some of us have since sailed away. Flex, let me say this. You're not going to pin me down to anything. Like I said, some have sailed away. And this process, and we don't have to be selfish about it. We did what we could do best. If the matter has to go forward, it probably requires an infusion of different talent. There are other experts in this country. We are not the only ones. We are the ones selected, and thank God for that. But there are others. That could be taken up and see the process through to its logical conclusion. But for us, we are satisfied that we discharge our mandate, and we are proud of the product that is called the 2020 Draft Constitution.
I'm sorry, sir. I know no one's
So don't ask any.
You said it was awesome. Some of the comments that we made. I was just on the people being more specific. Also, my follow-up question.
That's as specific as I can be.
The second one is that are you particularly disappointed that President Roll's failed to come out public and allow the this ascribe its failure?
That's your second question.
This is follow-up, please.
Final follow-up question, please. In the way that we there is a trend, and also observe also, you see the concept set of one of their mandate recommendations have been executed by government. Do you share this trend now because
I don't think this is a follow-up question. This is another loaded question.
That's fine, Sini. I will try and answer the question. You see, you asked me a political question. And frankly speaking, I stay away from that. It's not for me to express opinion on things like that. And I have to be very careful to recognize the fact that I'm a judge, in addition to be chair of the CRC. And, potentially things that can come before the judiciary are matters I need to stay away from. On those matters, the media has been doing its own reviews, it has been expressing its own opinion. The members of the public have been doing that. And I think that's within the public domain, and it's rightful in the public domain to make their assessment. But it's really not for me or the CRC to make any assessment on that. On the question of the statement I made about some not contributing to the process and it was personal, that's the best I can say. I'm not going to say anything beyond that. And you had another question. I will not comment on that. Sorry.
Yes, I can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Chairman, to crown it all, now that the draft constitution has been taken to Parliament and finally rejected, I want to know if there is any possible consequences with regards to the rejection. Thank you.
I really don't know what you mean. Like I said before, we all had hoped for a different outcome. That hasn't happened. Is the draft constitution rejected? Is it dead? I say no. And what people see as rejection, I see as hope going forward. It just means that we need to work together better to get to the destination we desire for this country. So I wouldn't call it dead. I think we all need to embrace the process that the CRC has commenced. Because for the first time in the history of this country, the level of participative democracy that we all witnessed and we all were involved in during the constitutional review process has never happened in this country. Never. So that alone should be, should be an encouragement. It should be a process that we not only take and cherish, but it is one we must proudly move on with as a country, as a people, to get what we feel is good and better for this country, today and for generations to come.
Thank you very much, Chairman. That brings us to the end of this.
Saying allow Zainab, yes.
Oh, okay. You can go ahead.
According to the Minister of Information, Cabinet is dissatisfied with 23 clauses in the draft constitution, and for that matter, they went back to the CRC for them to look into. Does this expose the stand of the Cabinet, who were already poised to slaughter the very baby to which they gave birth?
Zainab, you need to go back to Minister Silla and ask him that question. Really, for me to say anything on that will be speculative. I mean, it was not only the executive that wrote to us and sought reforms in certain areas of the proposed draft constitution. The judiciary did the same thing. The legislature did the same thing. Private citizens did the same thing. And we had a huge literature, on secularism. And we had so many other submissions. But at the end of the day, we need to be realistic. If we are serious about having a constitution, we must first recognize that every opinion cannot go into a draft constitution. Otherwise, we'll end up with a bloated constitution that nobody will read. And that's not going to be implementable anyway. So it makes no sense. I think at the end of the day, it brings me back to what I said earlier. We all individually and collectively have our wishes and aspirations. And our wishes and aspirations are things we want to see in the draft constitution. But the reality is different. You get some, you lose some. What we need to work towards is to see what is in the common interest of the country where we are today, going into the future. Sometimes we tend to think about ourselves only today. We don't think too much about the future generations of this country or the future governance of this country. Parliament is what it is today. Tomorrow it may change. The judiciary is what it is today. Tomorrow it may change. Similarly with the executive. Similarly with land, environment, natural resources. I think what we need to recognize is that, one, we do want to change as a people. Two, we want to improve upon what we already have, so we become better in our governance system and to make sure that every citizen is properly and adequately taken care of. Some may call that utopian ways, but you have to start there and then roll down back. And the other thing is, we need to ensure that we maintain the cohesiveness and the unity and the peace that we have as a people. I think it's important. Yes, certain reactions, breed negative consequences. But like I said in my statement, we must always work towards agreeing. If that can't happen, let's agree to disagree. But the most important thing is where we disagree, let's still maintain the harmony that we have together as a people.
Thank you very much, Honorable Justice Jalla, for responding appropriately to the questions raised by journalists. On that note, that will bring us to the end of this question and answer session. Now we will proceed to the next agenda on the item, that is vote of thanks by the CRC Vice Chairperson in our CCS. Madam Vice, you have this one.
Yeah, thank you. Before the Madam Vice Chair comes in, I have a very indefatigable Vice Chairperson. And I remember, at some point we had to be doing this to each other. And we've had some, very challenging times as commissioners. And never in my life, working in any committee, have I ever been challenged professionally, like I experienced within the CRC. I had the best team I could ever work with. They not only challenged me, but they brought proof. In fact, some made so that before they challenged me, they had proof already. And it worked perfectly well. And the vice chair did hold on. We all were frustrated at some point. And I still remember, the day before we released the proposed draft constitution, when commissioners were there yawning at 3 a.m. Because we were working to complete that process. We promised we would release on the 15th of November 2019. So once again, I just want to thank my commissioners. They've been splendid, each and every one of them. And you members of the media, I don't know how else to thank you. I've thanked you enough. Yes, Flex, I hear you. And you all have been part of this process. I don't think any group of people in this country, outside of the CRC, know our processes and what we went through better than we do. You've been with us through the length and breadth of this country. What we heard from the people is exactly what you also heard. You hear all the debate. But I think the most important thing for us at the CRC is not only your commitment, but the ability to take that message back to the people. So you are part of the process of educating our people on constitutional law and constitutional reform. So I think you all should clap for yourselves. You did an excellent job. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. With your permission, you can gently move towards the podium.
Thank you very much. My Lord Justice Jallo, my colleagues, commissioners, media practitioners, staff of the CRC, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a very long journey. And for us at the CRC, we have arrived. We have delivered on our mandate, and we are moving on. But we must first say thank you to every Gambian who participated in this process, particularly those in the remote villages of provincial Gambia. We recognize their enthusiasm. We heard their voices, and we made provision for whatever they wanted. To those in provincial Gambia, we, the people of the Gambia, in the urban areas, we owe them some form of responsibility. And that responsibility is to make sure that whatever document comes out as the Constitution of the Gambia caters for those Gambians in provincial Gambia. They do not deserve their condition, and we have to cater for them. For those other Gambians in the diaspora and Gambians within the urban areas, we thank you. We have received position papers. We consider the position papers. We thank the government also for having set up the CRC. The constitution that we have drafted is very much alive. It is not dead. And as we march towards the democratization of our country, as we march towards the realization of our fundamental human rights, the rights of the people of this country, we, members of the CRC, as citizens of the Gambia, citizens who wish our country well, will be there marching shoulder to shoulder to ensure that we get the best democratization process in place for the Gambia. Thank you very much for being there. We demit office with our heads high up. We continue with our struggle for democracy. Thank you.
At CRC, she is known as how do I call it? She's good at giving such statement, and they are always on the point. Thank you for delivering that powerful such statement. On that note, I will also join my bosses to thank my colleagues in the media who have been with us since day one, the inception of the CRC, until arriving today at the conclusion of this project. We value your partnership, and we hope that we will work in other future engagement. On that note, I thank you for gracing our press conference. Please take note, there will be a group photo outside if you are interested, because that has been a norm at the CRC. Whenever we have engagement with the media, we want to archive everything. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Love like fire. Wow. Love like fire. Xam ngeen rek affaire bi xam ngeen fan la? Skincare la 2020 lañ wax de. Waaw. Fii nag mooy Kerr fan Kerr zero tache perfect skin care saa su ne rek niñ ko dee defee rek loo lañ soxlaati rek maanaam bu da nga am problème ci seen skin yéen xam ngeen fan la fii ngeen di ñëw suma xarit yeeg am di jàmm yi nga xam ne taas daf lañ sonaloon xam nga doon xeesal ba la ka xum éneew ma lañ ko nag waaye just in case comme ni ko gars yi defee rek en cas just in case loolu xew xam ngeen fi ngeen di ñëw skin care plus si yu baax rek la ñoo dox nag ay baax rek fu ne la ñoo dem ci réew mi di lañ indi rek nag products yu baax du Paris du Italie du USA du fi mu nekk nii sax boole nañ ci nag Sweden fu nekk lañ leen a indilee products bu dee tamit nag da nga ñuul rek ñu lay jamaa natural beauty that melanin dripping we do have stuff for you as well emuñ si skin care products rek ñu ngi ci cuub yi tamit fu ne la ñoo jaar in fact sax last commercial bi ñu defoon waxuñ leen woon dañoo dox ci ay kawar 9A grade rek nag waaw we do have bundles as well hair si lu ne la ñoo dox ñun ñu ngi ci rafetal jigéen rek luy taaral jigéen rek waaw boo leen di tukki tamit bëggoon rek classic suitcase ñu ngi dañoo dox ci ay Samsonite duñ dee indi any brand of suitcases though other than Samsonite comme li ma dee wax rek boo eggee airport diri Samsonite dafa am nuñ laa xoolee waaw ngeen ne lan nag waaw skin ci moom la ñu gën a xamee nag skin care products ci moom la ñu gën a xamee ñu ngi dox tamit bentee tamit si ay dàlla man waaye man nag skin care mooy suma specialty xam nga rek jigéen bu sa xar kanam réglé loo def mu jag am nañ Patricia Reiner Kiwi Eye the whole range Lighten Up Gold Tomatine I mean the list can just go on and on and on and on lépp loo xam ne rek luy taaral jigéen la ci yooyu rek la ñoo dox skin care plus nag emuñ si Gambia rek ñu ngi United States ñu ngi Gambia fii ba pare bu dee yaa ngi anywhere in Europe mun nañ la ko mail within 3 days rek ñetti fan rek nga jot say diw emuñ si loolu rek dañ laa consult tamit balaa ñu laa jaay diw dinañ def a free consultation pour wax la rek exactly li nga xam ne moo méngoo ak sa kanam dinañ leen wax tamit ne rek am nañ perfumes fragrances men's shirts accessories we do dresses as well we do blouses I mean we do shoes name it we do them Skincare Plus 2020 is our year of perfection zero task fi mu nekk nii réew mi fii kenn waratu fi task kenn waratu fi am problème kanam kenn waratu fi am problème yu picca boo ko amee dafa fekk ne rek ñëwuloo ci place bi fii
love like fire bring my yobo guma fine love like fire ni betara dinga kenyo ni naye oyo tarakana bila
no ini bara
alright okay
welcome basically lot of lala me along is cool man that I can really relax what the madam let me some that's fine
Grand Villa love tanaduna namunantara
Come on, the Grand Villa.
That's fine.
Salaam alaikum. Yes. No.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people are basically me alone can very relaxed. So it's always something that I can understand. It's very relaxed.
You know what I say what? Nidia, Nena Grand Villa is the best guest house in the Gambia.
Beji andikam Grand Villa Guest House. Na labungul bebe senyaring adum na bungul bebe nyarandiring coming ibela fila ila suwe taranyame. Ntel Grand Villa na kiliano la lafino wala mukangotin telkang. Na ye sabati Grand Villa yela kodo na fa kalamuta.
Oh man, this is like a paradise.
I know.
I so much love this place.
Yes, thank you.
Trust me, I love this place.
You can move someone and you're watching what?
Yeah.
How can you and know what you can be on? Grand Villa.
I tell you. I love this place. Okay. I love this place, man. Oh yeah.
Ni leftana ku keso sotola futama Oljuntum Paradise Estate mbaya kumandiroke 7527218 wale futana website auto www.grandvillaguesthouse.com. Grand Villa Guest House.
Miss B Designer Outlet is the #1 quality and affordable stop shop for all your needs. Get your evening dresses, suit and ties, office wears for both ladies and gentlemen, beach wears, sport wears, pure leather shoes for men, quality belts, bags, heels for all beautiful ladies, original perfumes, accessories, and a lot more. Find us at Kololini Road opposite Gaddafi Mosque at the Aqua Preacher Station, or call us on 295-3411 or 764-2486. Miss B Designer Outlet. Shop right, look good.